Whether it's work, the gym, studying, or just chilling out, this video sponsor Raycon Everyday Earbuds will fill your ears with high-quality audio at a very reasonable price. Get 15% off your order when you visit buyraycon.com/skillup. Click the link below to check them out or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers, welcome, welcome one and all. You are all welcome here, be you Team Red, Team Blue, or Team Green, if that still exists after this week. I'm, of course, being overly dramatic. Let's rein it back a bit and talk about what we actually know when it comes to the rumors that Xbox are getting out of the exclusives business and pivoting to become a more active third-party publisher that releases their games on all platforms. So all of this began with various leaks, reports, and ratings pointing to the release of Hi-Fi Rush on other platforms. This is, of course, an Xbox exclusive made by an Xbox-owned studio and shadow dropped at the conclusion of an Xbox showcase. Xbox has released their games on other platforms before, usually due to holdover marketing deals in the case of Deathloop, or Minecraft, which is its own thing entirely, so that doesn't really count, but Hi-Fi Rush is unburdened by any of that stuff, so logically, it should have remained an Xbox exclusive in perpetuity. Reliable reports suggest that that will not be the case. Subsequent reporting also suggested that Sea of Thieves would arrive on PlayStation. This is another Xbox exclusive made by an Xbox-owned studio, though it is a live service, and so you can sort of see the business case for getting it out onto more platforms. It does kind of make sense. We covered all this a few weeks back, and I commented that it's really no big deal if Microsoft starts releasing some of its smaller, less defining titles on other platforms, because whatever. No one's buying an Xbox to play Hi-Fi Rush, as good as it is, in the same way that no one's buying a PlayStation to play Days Gone. So these multi-platform moves are notable, but it doesn't signal a major shift in strategy for how Xbox plans to do business. But when we start talking about Starfield coming to PlayStation, Indiana Jones coming to PlayStation, Gears of fucking War coming to PlayStation, then you know that something very big has gone down at Microsoft HQ, and that's exactly what's rumored to be happening right now. This past week, Xbox Era reported that they have heard Microsoft have plans to bring Starfield to PlayStation. Quote, "We understand that currently Microsoft are planning a launch for Starfield on PlayStation 5 post the release of the already announced Shattered Space expansion pack for Xbox and PC, which is on target to arrive at some point later this year. We've also been informed that Microsoft have made additional investment into PlayStation 5 dev kits to support ongoing development efforts," end quote. This reporting was then confirmed by one Nate the Hate, a very reliable insider who does not talk out his ass. Soon after this, it was The Verge's turn. They reported that Microsoft was considering releasing the upcoming Indiana Jones game on PlayStation. Quote, "A new multi-platform approach for certain Xbox games is emerging inside Microsoft, we're told, with the company weighing up which titles will remain exclusive and others that will appear on Switch or PS5 in the future. Indiana Jones appears to be part of this new wave of multi-platform games," end quote. Finally, it was Jeff Grubb's turn to step up to the plate. Speaking as part of his Game Mess morning podcast, Jeff said this, quote, "The other one that I've heard that's definitely under consideration, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but it's in talks, is Gears of War. Gears of War is being considered for this," end quote. Holy shit, can you imagine pushing around those chunky boys and girls with a DualSense 5 controller? That is going to feel very, very weird. Speculation swirled about this on social media, with everyone waiting for Phil Spencer to confirm or deny these reports. He will do so, but not until next week. Today he posted on Twitter, quote, "We're listening and we hear you. We've been planning a business update event for next week where we look forward to sharing more details with you about our vision for the future of Xbox. Stay tuned," end quote. The fact that Microsoft need a week to prepare a statement on all of this rather than just rebutting it outright certainly suggests that some or all of it is true. So all of this caused a massive amount of backlash and anger within the Xbox community, and I think it's really easy to just laugh at that and be like, oh, silly console warriors and their nonsense about which plastic box they want to base their personality on, and believe me, no one hates console warrior bullshit more than me. I really, really hate it. But this is not that. This is about something bigger. It's about the sacrifices, in inverted commas, that Xbox gamers have had to make to this point, and how those sacrifices become rather meaningless when the competition suddenly gets access to Microsoft's flagship exclusives. What do I mean by that? Well, if you bought an Xbox all those years ago and that's the only console you can afford, you made a decision to go with that platform. You now no longer get to play God of War or Spider-Man or The Last of Us or whatever, but you do get to play Halo and Gears of War and Forza and Starfield. That's the trade-off you made because Microsoft promised you exclusives, Sony promised you exclusives, and you chose your console based on that decision-making framework. Now, if this reporting is true, it turns out you probably should have bought a PlayStation all along. You could have been playing Spider-Man or Returnal or Horizon Zero Dawn, and you could also play Starfield and Sea of Thieves and Gears of War. You can sort of see how an Xbox owner might be pissed off at that, right? And to be clear, Phil Spencer has said repeatedly that the promise of Xbox is the promise of exclusive games. Speaking back in 2021 about the Bethesda acquisition, Phil said this, quote, "If you are an Xbox customer, the thing I want you to know is that this is about delivering great exclusive games for you that ship on platforms where Xbox Game Pass exists. That's our goal, that's why we're doing this, and that's the root of our partnership that we're building," end quote. So for Xbox to suddenly turn around and abandon that commitment to exclusive games after millions of people have based their console purchase decisions on those sorts of promises, again, you can kind of see why people might be upset about this pivot. The flip side argument to all of this is that exclusives are anti-consumer and should not exist. I have never agreed with that. I agree that a bunch of third-party exclusive deals generally suck and are disappointing, needlessly making it harder for people to play games. But first-party platform exclusives are a really important building block in this business. They fund studios, and most of the games that those studios make are not microtransaction-driven live services, but are instead single-player experiences that third-party publishers are increasingly reluctant to fund. These exclusives are the draw card that bring people to a hardware platform, so that platform can then attract more game releases and then more players. That means the platform can continue to compete against other platforms on price, on technology, and most importantly, on game quality. In the absence of strong first-party exclusives, there's just no reason to buy into a hardware platform, and that means that platform effectively ceases to exist, which means less competition in this industry, which absolutely nobody wants. But here's another perspective. Phil Spencer himself has said that Microsoft is running a distant third place, having lost the most important console generation when everyone was building their digital libraries. Xbox hardware sales started strong but have since plateaued, and at this point they're no better this generation than they were during the disastrous Xbox One generation, and the gap between Xbox Series consoles and the PS5 is only widening. Game Pass growth is also flat, another fact confirmed by Phil Spencer himself during the recent Microsoft v FTC court case. They also spent $77 billion acquiring two publishers whose games have always been multi-platform, with massive established player bases that would happily buy a Bethesda or a Blizzard game, but they wouldn't buy an Xbox console in order to play that game. More broadly, Microsoft have been positioning for a hardware-agnostic future for a while now. Their promise of full PC parity for their release catalog was realized years ago. xCloud coverage continues to expand and offers a shockingly good performance if your internet is up to snuff, and Microsoft have publicly declared for handheld PC consoles like the Asus ROG Ally. Hell, you can play Xbox games on your Meta Quest 3 headset owing to a native xCloud app there. Microsoft have never been shy about their Play Anywhere strategy, but to this point that strategy has had a little asterisk next to it. Play Anywhere, but PlayStation and Nintendo. If these rumors are true, they won't be needing that asterisk anymore. So what do I think about all this? I'll be honest with you. I think it's too early to judge. These are rumors. Clearly some of them are true, I'm sure some of them aren't. Phil is going to address the matter next week, and at that point I think we can all start deciding what we actually think about this. I am a little nervous about it though, to be honest. I think this would be a big change for the industry, and I think it would be hard to predict its likely outcomes. Sure, more people will get to play Starfield or Gears of War, and that's great, but what are we trading away in return for that? That's the part that's not clear to me yet, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Phil Spencer has to say. When he does speak, I wonder if he'll provide an update on Xbox's commitment to physical media. GamesIndustry.biz recently reported that numerous retailers across Europe are no longer putting Xbox games on shelves. Quote, "I got told by a major publisher just before Christmas that across Europe, several retailers have started not listing Xbox anymore. So they've just started not stocking Xbox games anymore. Xbox is such a digital console, the physical performance of games is really low, and ultimately, when you're selling a console that most people are just downloading games for, it doesn't really benefit the retailer very much," end quote. It follows reports that during the recent round of job cuts at Microsoft, some or all of the physical goods department were laid off. This is the team responsible for putting discs into boxes and onto shelves, and apparently that team is either significantly downsized or gone. And that follows the big leak from last year, where we learned that the mid-console refresh for Xbox is an all-digital machine. No disk drive in their flagship Series X machine, a first for Microsoft since the Series S is diskless, but it is not their flagship offering. Physical media really matters. In fact, it matters more and more every day as companies show just how little regard they have for consumer ownership or game preservation. It would be extremely disappointing if Microsoft were to abandon physical discs in favor of an all-digital future. And I suspect they'll pay a price for it because people still buy physical games. They don't buy Blu-ray movies or CDs that much these days, but they do buy games. And they're going to keep buying them from whichever platform holder is willing to sell them. Let's hope that Xbox remains one of those platforms. Alright, so that's Xbox. What's going on in the world of Sony? Well, while Xbox considers getting out of the exclusives business, Sony hosted another one of their State of Play webinars where they just showed off a bunch of exclusive games. Not all exclusive, mind you, but certainly a few of them are only hitting Sony's big white box. Take Stellar Blade, for example. This is a third-person action game with a lot of Nier Automata energy. It was revealed some time ago, and people like what they saw, but this new extended look at the game really got people fired up. A lot of hype for this one now, with people loving the visual style, the setting, the combat, and the story setup. Me personally, I don't know about this one yet. It isn't grabbing me like it's grabbing everyone else. I love Nier Automata just as much as the next person, more in fact. But a lot of the appeal of that game was in things you could never communicate in a trailer. That's why I'm not quite there yet with this, but I am optimistic. Definitely has got a lot going for it, and we won't be waiting much longer to play it since it arrives exclusive to the PS5 on April 26th. Sonic X Shadows Generation is a remake of Sonic Generations with a twist. It's got a whole new story campaign featuring Shadow the Hedgehog. People went pretty wild when he burst into that trailer. This remake also has improved visuals and bonus content for the original Sonic Generations game. It's arriving towards the back end of this year, no specific date yet. Silent Hill is back, and we have every reason to be skeptical. Konami showed off two projects during the showcase. The first was something called Silent Hill: The Short Message, which is a free demo-like experience that was shadow dropped onto the PSN. It's not very good. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the review roundup block. The other trailer they rolled out was for the Silent Hill 2 remake, currently in development at Bloober Team. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just really hard to know how this one's gonna go. Similar to the initial reveal, just something about the visual design isn't clicking. It lacks the oppressive quality and grittiness of the original, plus some of the animations here looked a little wonky. I don't know, man, and it's weird because earlier Bloober Team have said that the project is basically finished, and now we get another trailer that just says in development for PS5. It's odd, and I do wonder if there's a bit of behind-the-scenes drama going on with this one. We'll get our first proper gameplay look at Judas, the next thing from Ken Levine, the creative mind behind the Bioshock series. This is definitely looking like more Bioshock, and I am 100% okay with that. It's been a long time since we've had a game like this, except for maybe Atomic Heart, but that had a lot of problems. I'm glad Levine is back in the saddle after all these years. I'm glad he and his team are making a game that clearly plays to their strengths, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on this one. No date yet. We aren't getting a Metro sequel anytime soon, it seems, but we are getting a Metro prequel in the form of Metro Awakening. The bad news, for some at least, is that it's a VR game. Personally, I'm okay with that, but I know a lot of people don't have a headset, or they just don't like VR. Either way, I think this looks super impressive. I think the claustrophobic Metro setting is a perfect fit for VR. No date for this one yet, but it does arrive this year. We got a new Dragon's Dogma 2 trailer, which continues to look fantastic, as well as an extended look at Rise of the Ronin. This trailer met a bit of a mixed reception, but personally, I was really into it. I'm not tired of the whole samurai thing yet, and as someone who's loved most of what Team Ninja's put out over the years, I'm really keen to see their take on a truly open world adventure. This one is releasing March 22nd, the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2. It's like Barbenheimer, except both of them are grimdark Japanese RPGs, so I don't think the comparison really holds. To cap all of this off, it was time for a deep dive look at Death Stranding 2. And oh my god, did you see this trailer? I legitimately lost my mind. It was the coolest fucking thing I'd ever seen. Like, why is her mask a set of animating hands? Why is there a puppet? And why does he run at the same FPS as Jedi Survivor on PC? Why is legendary director George Miller in there, looking sick as hell, by the way? Why is Sam blue? Why is Troy Baker the Joker? And why is he now shredding enemies to death with an electrified guitar? I'm sorry, but this was incredible. It is so rare that a trailer makes me actually feel something these days, because I'm just so conditioned to wait until I play it for myself. But I was yelling when I watched this. Is this how sports fans feel when their team does something good? I don't give a fuck about sports, but Kojima, oh captain, my captain, you have done it again, and I'm so disgustingly excited to play this video game in 2025. Sad times, I do wish it was a bit sooner. But Kojima wasn't done. Teaming up with Sony's Herman Holst, Kojima announced that he was getting back into the tactical espionage action business. He's working on horror title Overdose, and after that, his next project will be an all-new stealth game currently codenamed Pheasant, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is not just a game though. Kojima was very clear that this is also a movie and also something else maybe. He says he wants to transcend the barrier between film and games, which is kind of what he's been doing his whole career, so it makes sense. Obviously, this is a long way off, so we shouldn't get too excited yet, but it is deeply exciting to see Kojima return to his roots and pick up from where he left off. Sony concluded the show by announcing another webinar scheduled for today. At the time of writing, it hadn't aired, but it's a deep dive look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and culminated in the announcement of a demo available right now. I know that because the demo actually leaked, so yes, thank you to the intern who uploaded that announcement earlier than planned. You did your boy a solid, and I won't forget it. Hard pivot now, returning to the sad and disappointing story of the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which launched this past week, and it did not go very well. We covered some of the early access teething issues in last week's show, with Rocksteady offering $20 worth of in-game currency to people affected by prolonged server downtime. Fair enough, I guess. But server downtime was the least of this game's problems. You've no doubt seen some of the reviews that have been doing the rounds, including perhaps my own. I absolutely did not recommend this one. Despite being hopeful for what the story and campaign might deliver, I found myself deeply disappointed with basically every single aspect of this game, bar its exceptional presentation. I was not alone in that perspective. Critics have been brutal, putting it at a 59 on OpenCritic, which for a Rocksteady game, I mean, that is just tragic. IGN scored this one a 5 out of 10, saying, quote, engaging mission design is nearly non-existent, the looter-shooter mechanics are tired and dull, and the grotesquely repetitive post-game leaves little to nothing to do of interest. The result is a bit of a mess that doesn't ever impress with any of its numerous ill-conceived ideas, end quote. There were more positive reviews to be found, absolutely, like VGC, who scored the game a 4 out of 5 and said it was a much better game than expected, but those sorts of reviews were certainly in the minority. Interestingly, Steam reviews for this put it at a very positive 84%. However, it's important to note that that's from less than 3,000 reviews, which is a pretty small sample size when we're talking about a big AAA game with this sort of marketing budget behind it. That number is low because, well, not a lot of people have bought this thing. Separate from the reviews, the more dire numbers for Suicide Squad were its sales numbers and its player counts. It was the #1 selling game at retail in the UK during its launch week, but it did sell half the number that the Guardians of the Galaxy game did, and that game was kind of famous for not selling particularly well. On Steam, the game peaked at a concurrent player count of 13,500, and that is less than half of the peak concurrent player count of Marvel's Avengers, a number achieved some 4 years ago, and that game was just a straight up flop, no two ways about it. Given how long Rocksteady have spent making this, and how much money Warner Brothers have spent marketing it, all signs point to this being a colossal failure, and as I said in my review, I highly doubt that the live service future of this game is going to see those costs recouped. We'll find out what's going to happen over the coming weeks, months, and years, I guess, so stay tuned. A quick lightning round to finish off. Pal World is showing absolutely no signs of slowing down. It's still pulling in over 1.3 million peak concurrent players at the moment, and has now sold over 12 million copies. It's also the largest ever third-party release on Game Pass, with more than 7 million players over there. That puts the total player base at around 19 million people. This game is so successful that the developers are spending nearly $500,000 a month just to keep the servers up. Luckily, that is a very manageable expense for them at this point, and they're currently working on delivering promised roadmap items. Much to Nintendo's chagrin, it appears as though Pal World ain't going anywhere anytime soon. When it comes to Destiny 2, it's literally Jova. That's because game director Joe Blackburn has just announced that the final shape will be his last content drop, and after that he'll pass the torch to one Tyson Green, a Bungie veteran going back to the days of Myth. Blackburn has said that he's leaving Bungie for a new adventure, but didn't say where that new adventure was. His exit marks the end of an era, given his stewardship over the last 3 to 4 years, as well as the fact that Destiny 2 is about to conclude a 10-year-long light versus dark saga. It's new leadership and a new story arc ahead. Let's see if Bungie are able to keep Destiny 2 alive for another 10 years. Speaking of Destiny, it's teaming up with my other favorite sci-fi universe. No, I'm not talking about Rebel Moon. which everyone loved. I'm talking about Mass Effect. The collaboration isn't exactly a barn burner, just some cosmetics, but hey, it's better than nothing. From February 13th onwards, you'll be able to grab an N7-themed Titan armor, a Garrus-inspired Hunter set, and a Liara Shadow Broker-inspired set for Warlocks. There is also, of course, a skin that will make your ship look like the Normandy, but sadly, no Volus-inspired ghost shells. I really think that could have worked. Seems like a big missed opportunity there, Bungo. Apple has launched their Apple Vision Pro to pretty good reviews. I really recommend checking out the coverage from The Verge, from Marques Brownlee, as well as an excellent video from Casey Neistat. They each provide a very different take on the tech, from cautious skepticism to quiet optimism to outright wonder. It's a fascinating piece of technology, albeit one that anyone with a Meta Quest 3 has already kind of experienced. Speaking of which, Meta, aka Facebook, lost $16.1 billion on metaverse projects in just 2023. That division produced just $1.9 billion in revenue, but the Zuck is undeterred, saying that he predicts the Quest 3 headset will turn things around. He did offer an interesting figure though. On Christmas Day, the #1 most downloaded app in the App Store was the Meta Quest app that you need to download when you get a new headset. That is pretty impressive, I think, and a sign that Meta are making at least some headway. And finally, Nintendo have done the impossible. They have given us a reason to want to visit Florida. They just announced that they're opening up a new Super Nintendo World at the Universal Studios there. Will we see escaped chain chomps rocking up in Floridian swimming pools? I hope so, because we've seen enough escaped alligators at this point, so we really need to mix things up a little bit. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, it's always nice to get a new announcement from Devolver, and we got one this week. It's called Children of the Sun, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it totally rules. Imagine something similar to Super Hot, only you play as a sniper, and after the shot is fired, you become the bullet and can control it after it strikes each target. I played the demo a little while ago and absolutely loved it. That same demo is going up this week as part of the Steam NextFest, so be sure to check it out. There's no release date for this one yet, but it's arriving sometime this year. Euphoria is a sequel to a cult platformer that released back on the NES in 1991, before most of the people watching this video were even born. Developer Sunsoft obviously had a Sunsoft spot for it, and have decided to bring it back with a really lovely looking art style reminiscent of Yoshi's Crafted World. This one is releasing March 1st on Steam. Resident Evil 4 Remake is getting its customary and wholly expected Gold Edition, which contains the base game, the Separate Ways DLC, as well as some extra goodies. This one releases on February 9th for all platforms bar the Switch. Here's an odd one. Dragon Quest Builder is coming to PC. And you might say, hang on, that's already on PC, to which I say, Dragon Quest Builder 2 is on PC, #1 is not, and that is the one that Square Enix are finally bringing to PC on the 13th, a full 8 years after it arrived on console. A very odd play from Square, but I guess they're banking on the Dragon Quest franchise having enough pull to make this release make commercial sense. Final announcement is that classic Blizzard games like Warcraft 1 and 2 and Diablo 1 now available on Battle.net to purchase. You could get them by other means before, but this just makes it a bit easier and allows you to keep that library all in one place. 2 delay announcements this week. The first is for Open Roads, the narrative-led road trip game from the people who made Gone Home and Tacoma. They reformed under a new banner, owing to some very messed up shit going down at Fulbright, but that's a whole other story. This one is being published by Annapurna Interactive, who certainly know a hit when they see it, so there's a strong chance that this will be great. It was meant to release on February 22nd, but it will now arrive on March 28th. The team citing the need for more time to polish things up. Fair enough. And finally, Life by You seems to be the first proper swing at The Sims since The Sims itself released over 2 decades ago. This one has already copped 1 delay, meaning it was meant to launch into early access in March, but it will now arrive on June 4th. The publisher, Paradox, cited player feedback from early testing as reasons for the delay, as well as things like stability and performance, art, and gameplay refinements, and mod tools. That is a pretty long list, so yeah, that chunky delay does make a fair amount of sense. So what came out last week? Well, during Sony's webinar, they did shadow drop that new Silent Hill experience called The Short Message. It's kind of like Konami's spin on PT, like we have Kojima at home. Spoiler alert, they very much do not have Kojima at home. This debuted at a week 57 on OpenCritic, continuing the decades-long pox on the House of Silent Hill fans, where everything new that's released basically sucks. GameSpot scored this one a brutal 3 out of 10, saying, quote, Silent Hill's return to consoles after 12 years away falls flat thanks to a script lacking even an ounce of subtlety, end quote. Not everyone hated it though. Games Radar scored it a 3 out of 5 and said, quote, while it's not perfect, it does make me think that there might be a bright future for Silent Hill after all, end quote. So it's better than that cringy Twitch thing that came out last year, but it's worse than basically any other decent survival horror experience from the last 2 decades. Given that this is free, the stakes seem pretty low, so give it a crack if you're at all interested. Biggest success of the week is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, a premium JRPG based on a popular mobile game. This one had some serious talent behind it, including Platinum Games, who were involved for at least a little bit, and legendary Final Fantasy composer Nobu Uematsu. I was aware of this one, but I hadn't seen too much buzz for it. Fast forward to this week, and it hit a maximum concurrent player count of 113,000 people on Steam. And that number is still rising daily, mind you. This one has just completely blown up and blown people away. It's sitting at a very positive 84% on Steam, and critics are equally impressed, putting it at a strong 82 on OpenCritic. IGN enjoyed it in large part because it's a lot more brief than most other JRPG experiences. They scored it an 8 out of 10, saying, quote, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink bucks the RPG genre's usual trend of long and slow-paced stories, but the relative brevity of its campaign doesn't compromise on the quality of its storytelling, end quote. While Digital Trends seem to be quite taken with it, scoring it a 4 out of 5 and saying, quote, if any modern RPG is going to captain us into an uncharted future for the genre, I trust Grand Blue Fantasy Relink to steer the ship, end quote. This one is out now for PlayStation and PC, no word yet on a potential Xbox release. Critical darling of the week was certainly Persona 3 Reload, which hit all platforms bar the Switch on the 4th. This is the 4th time that Persona 3 has been released, and this time it's a top-to-bottom remaking of the title that delivers not only a complete graphical overhaul, but also a number of changes to core gameplay systems. For the most part, these glow-ups and interventions seem to have been a success. On Steam, it's at 97% overwhelmingly positive, which is a crazy good result, and critics put it at a mighty 89 on OpenCritic. Our man Edmond has played through this game 3 times before. This is an 80-hour RPG, mind you, so you're getting a sense of what kind of weirdo Edmond really is. He loved playing through it a 4th time here, saying, quote, Persona 3 has a lot less fluff than 4 and 5, which really lets that core Buffy-like school kid by day, demon killer by night vibe shine. Some say the atmosphere is lost in Persona 3 Reload thanks to the influence of Persona 5, but I personally still got enough of that early 2000s vibe to make me happy. I love how the city has realized that the game is stylish as hell, and some of the new songs are all-time bops, end quote. So there you have it, weebs. Between Like a Dragon and Grand Blue and Persona 3, you guys have had a good run, and you're getting Final Fantasy VII Remake at the end of the month. What do we non-weebs get? Suicide Squad, that's what. Fucking hell, man, I'm switching teams. Only other release this week was Vampire the Masquerade Justice, a VR title that was on other platforms but arrived on the PSVR 2 this week. It's meant to be okay. And finally, Foam Stars. This one would have launched just prior to this video going live, so we'll check in on reviews for that one next week. Speaking of next week, what's coming out next week? Well, it's a pretty interesting week, actually, with a good mix of big and small stuff. On the bigger end of the spectrum is Helldivers 2, sequel to the top-down twin-stick shooter, which here makes the jump to full 3D third-person. Previews for this one went live this past week, and they were all unanimously positive, which is relieving, to be honest, because we hadn't seen much actual gameplay of this to this point, so I was getting a little worried. This one is a live service title published by Sony, which means it'll arrive for both the PS5 and the PC at the same time, which is, I think, the first time they've done that. But they did earlier say that it was their plan to launch live services on PC and console at the same time, so this is them just delivering on that promise. As for how it's looking pretty rad. It's a lot of Starship Troopers energy up in here, from the aesthetics to the comedy. I'm very keen for this, but I'm gonna have to wait for a while to play it, as I gotta review Skull and Bones, which sort of goes live around the same time, owing to the recently announced open beta. Wish me luck on that one. This next one's interesting. Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden. This one is from Focus Interactive, the publisher behind stuff like Atlas Fallen and Evil West. They like to play in that AA space, and this is another one of those games. It's a narrative-led Sony-style cinematic game with some really high production values. Ever since I saw the reveal trailer for it a while back, it's been on my radar. I really love keeping up with the AA scene and seeing what they've got cooking, especially when they shoot for stuff that kind of blurs the line between AA and AAA. Think A Plague Tale, which is, funnily enough, another title from Focus. Very keen to see how this one shakes out when it arrives on all platforms bar the Switch on the 13th. Austin is lined up to do the review for that one, so if you want to know the minute that review is live, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ding the bell, and we'll take good care of you. Enjoyed Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, and are keen for some more time-bending fun? Meet Lisfunga, the Time Shift Warrior. It's not a Metroidvania though, it's actually more of a puzzle game where you create little clones of yourself to accomplish tasks simultaneously. Kind of hard to explain, but it makes immediate sense as soon as you see it in action. It's a simple visual aesthetic, but the gameplay is looking really clever and fun, and I definitely plan to check this one out. It's launching exclusive to PC on the 13th. The other indie I'm very keen for on the 13th is Ultros. I profiled this one on my Put This On Your Radar segment a little while ago, and it got a great response because, yeah, I mean, look at it. It looks sick, like an acid trip without the risk of permanent paranoia. This one actually comes from the artist and musician who goes by the name El Huervo, whose work you would no doubt have heard on the Hotline Miami soundtrack, since they have some of the best songs on that absolutely legendary OST. I think this looks so interesting, and it's very high on my list. Even though February is utterly stacked, this one hits PlayStation and PC on the 13th. No word on a Switch or Xbox release yet. And finally, Tomb Raider 1 to 3 are getting remastered. It's being handled by Aspyr Media, who were the team in charge of the KOTOR remake before that project went belly up. This remake is the first 3 games as you remember them, with improved visuals. The only other change they made is that they put Lara Croft's name in the title, just in case anyone forgot that the Tomb Raider games star Lara Croft. I would have thought that was a bit redundant, but I'm sure the geniuses in marketing had their reasons, so we're just gonna have to trust them on this one. Alright, it's time for another Steam NextFest, so you know what that means. Put all this on your radar. If you're at all unfamiliar, Steam NextFest is a celebration of upcoming indie and AA titles. It's hosted by Valve on the Steam storefront, and there you'll see that developers have uploaded hundreds of playable demos, available for around about 7 days, sometimes a little longer. It can be intimidating to step into a NextFest, since there are just so many demos and you don't know where to start, but over the years Valve has added some incredibly useful filters, allowing you to sort by genre, see what's trending, see what's most wishlisted, or just see which demos are being played the most. It makes it really easy to find stuff that's going to appeal to you, and it's so worth doing that because I promise you, if you spend a few hours over the next week just clicking on stuff and taking a chance on something that looks interesting, you're going to find something you absolutely love. It happens every single time. The NextFest is currently live on Steam and will be until about Monday of next week. Get in there and enjoy yourself, but if you're too busy, that's all good, because we're actually working on a video this week where we profile the best demos that we've played. Look out for that video very soon. Sort of free stuff time now, and it is the first week of the month, so we've got a fair bit to cover. Epic kicks us off as always, and it's a pretty good showing this week from them. Right now you can still grab puzzle game Doors Paradox, but later this week it'll be replaced by 2 new offerings. The first is Lost Castle, a classic 2D style beat 'em up supporting 4-player co-op. The other one is Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, a totally harmless and wholesome anime waifu visual novel game where nothing weird ever happens. Just a standard boy meets girl kind of thing. Not sure why this game gets a mature rating, but you know, these rating agencies, they're always so sensitive. Prime Gaming, it got its weekly refresh, but there isn't a huge amount to shout out there except for the original Fallout, plus Breakout Recharged and Missile Command Recharged, which are apparently pretty good. The PS Plus lineup for February has been revealed. We already knew that Foam Stars was the headline offering. That's available for free this month, and as of next month it'll be about 30 bucks, so best to grab it now. Steel Rising, this is an interesting one. Before Lies of P kind of perfected the whole Souls-like with automatons thing, developer Spiders had a solid swing at it with Steel Rising. Like most of their games, it's a little rough around the edges, but it's got it where it counts. It's worth checking out if you have the time. And I don't care if you have the time or not, you are playing Rollerdrome. That is an order. It is the 3rd PS Plus offering for the month, and it's like Tony Hawk meets Max Payne meets Jet Set Radio, and it's just sick. It's totally sick. You're going to absolutely love it. 2 other quick but unusual shoutouts for this section. The first is something called the Forever Labyrinth. If you've played the excellent 80 Days on mobile, then you'd know the team that made this one. It's a roguelike puzzle experience where each run takes about an hour and you need to do multiple runs to see it all through. This team doesn't know how to make a bad game, so it's sure to be a good time. Plus, it's free to play via web. Just Google the Forever Labyrinth and you'll find it. The last shout is particularly cool. Celeste is a defining indie platformer, and it it turned 6 years old this week. To celebrate, developer Maddie Makes Games released this, Celeste 64. It's a short demo-style experience that captures the visuals and color palette of the original, but it makes it look like a 3D Nintendo 64 game. And yes, it is absolutely hard as hell, just as you'd expect. It's also totally free to experience over on itch.io. Just Google Celeste 64 and you'll have no trouble finding it. Celeste is very famous for its speedrunning community, and that creates a neat segue for us to talk about our feel-good story for the week, which involves an entirely new category of speedrunning, sex speedrunning. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that some people play for the story, others for the combat, but most people play it to make the sexy times with your companions. It is such a drawcard that a small group of speedrunners set themselves a novel challenge. How quickly can you bed one of your party members? Someone by the name of May had it down to just 2 minutes and 13 seconds with Lae'zel. That was until developer Larry and studio made a specific point of increasing Lae'zel's resolve in patch 4. Now you actually need to prove yourself to her through your actions, rather than just rely on her thirst to get down and dirty at a moment's notice. But May did not give up and overcame Larian's interference to find a new solution that's almost as fast, thanks to another patch that relaxed the conditions to recruit companion Minthara. May's new world record is now 4 minutes and 17 seconds. May took a victory lap upon defending their record, saying, quote, "Larian tried to patch out sex speedrunning. Unfortunately for them, we are not so easily deterred," end quote. God bless gamers, am I right? And God bless you for stopping by and hanging out with us for 35 minutes. Really appreciate your time, but I do have one small request. If you are still here and you enjoyed yourself, please hit that like button, as it means big things to the YouTube gods and helps this video get spread far and wide across the mercurial algorithm. If you'd like to come back next week or just help us on that march to 1 million subs, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and ding the notification bell. This week I'm playing through Steam NextFest demos in preparation for a video. Plus I'm also checking out the Skull and Bones open beta on the weekend. I know Austin is also doing NextFest demos before moving on to Helldivers. A lot of big content coming this week, so I hope you'll join us. Thanks again for stopping by, and a big thanks to this week's sponsor, Raycon. Alrighty, time to talk about this video's sponsor, Raycon. Now, I know you've heard about Raycons before. You watch YouTube, so you've seen the ads, but Raycons are out there like that because they're proud of what they make, and they should be. Raycon earbuds have always been some of the best value earbuds on the market, delivering sound quality, features, and battery life that competes with premium earbuds, but Raycon delivers all of that for a fraction of the cost. It's such a reasonable price point that I've bought many pairs over the years, gifting them to friends and family, because we all need another set of earbuds, right? The pair we keep in our backpack, our gym bag, or the ones we leave in our lockers at school or work. Nothing I hate more than being without earbuds, so having a few pairs of Raycons laying around has saved me on plenty of occasions. As for using them, I've always loved them. Their custom gel tips create a snug, comfortable, noise-isolating fit, and Raycons actually stay in my ear. That's one of the biggest reasons I use them. I've tried other earbuds and the shape of my ear means they just fall out all the time, but Raycons stay in no matter what I'm doing. They have earbud tap functions allowing me to pause or skip songs without having to touch my phone, plus they sound great, and the carry case is nice and small, so it fits really easily in my pocket. It's a new year and my big resolution has been getting back to the gym, and you know what? I'm sticking with it. Getting there 3 to 5 times a week, getting swole, getting fit on the treadmill. When I'm at the gym, usually listening to an audiobook, I'm always wearing my Raycons and they never let me down. If you want to grab a set, you can get 15% off anything on the Raycon site plus free shipping by visiting buyraycon.com/skillup. That landing page will get you at least 15% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/skillup. Premium audio at a very affordable price. Thanks Raycon for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.